a lot of times when it comes to um, counseling, this belief that we're just not good enough. It could be with um, a job. I'm not smart enough, or there's other people here that are way better at me than this, or it could be in social groups. Could be with speaking in front of people. That I'm just what I have to say isn't that important, or people don't really care so much about what I say, or they're bored. And all of these are really this indicative of this core belief that we have that we're just not good enough. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, because the reality is there is a part of you, a spirit in you that will never feel like you're enough. And we have to make peace with that. We have to learn to accept that part as will always be there. And when we can accept that part of ourselves, it has less power. We can identify that there's these cognitive distortions that show up that we need to combat and challenge. So thoughts are automatic. Thoughts are reactions to the past, the present stimuli. So thoughts are reactive, but our actions don't have to be reactive. So in his book, A Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl said that in between the stimulus and the response is a space. And in that space is the power to choose. So we have this core belief that we're just not enough. But then we also know that there's a part of our nature that we can't change, that we never feel like we're enough. So what do we do about that? Well, to get a habit of identifying these cognitive distortions as they show up so it doesn't guide our actions. So in reality, the place that you want to get to for health is a realization on one hand that thoughts are reactive, they are automatic, they do show up, they are negative. That's just part of your nature. But then on the other hand, you want to make sure that it doesn't drive your behaviors and your actions. So it's okay to let the mind do what it does, but it's not okay to change your behaviors based off of those cognitive distortions. Now, why do they call it cognitive distortions? Well, that's what they are. It's you're not seeing things clearly because you have this core belief. For example, let's say that you're in a high competitive environment and there's a lot of really smart people in the room, but you tend to think that you're not a smart person because every time your name's called on, you stumble and fumble over your words a little bit, but you do get the point across and the message across. So you're looking for reasons to validate this core belief of yourself. You're looking for evidence. This is called confirmation bias. So we're trying to find evidence, or we're naturally tuned to evidence. We're at that frequency where it's like a radio station. We tune to it to a certain station so we get all that feedback. So we're tuning ourselves to receive feedback from our environment that confirms this core belief about ourselves. And that's a big problem because in reality, it's a distortion. You're not getting a clear message about what's happening. So you're taking that instance of, I'm actually not an intelligent person, and you're carrying it over to your whole life. You're labeling yourself as I'm just not actually this intelligent person at all. When in reality, the environment that you're probably in is sterile of love and acceptance. It's highly competitive, and you're not the one running the show. So you're actually probably in an environment that is not conducive towards feeling like you're enough. And so you're probably experiencing a very similar emotion to everybody else in the room. You're just being human. But what happens so often is that we take that small situation and we feed it into our core belief. And then we guide our actions and our life based off of that. And so then our conversations with people aren't as good as they could be. They're not as life-giving as they could be because we already have that distortion that we're not smart enough or we're not able to keep up. And so we start preventing and avoiding things. So core beliefs can have a huge, huge impact in our life. But the first thing that you want to do when you have a core belief is you want to accept that there's a part of yourself that will always have that belief present, that I'm not good enough. Or there's social comparisons. There's always a part of yourself that is going to naturally compare to other people. So you can't get rid of those things. There's no cure for that. That's just part of being a human. But you can choose the correct action. You can choose not to base your behaviors off of those beliefs. And that's where health comes in. And that's what, counseling does, is it teaches you that just because I have this core belief or these reactive and automatic thoughts that show up like the wind, nobody knows where they're coming from or where they're going, I don't have to act on them. And that's health. And that's what you want to do, is you want to choose healthy. You want to choose that little space between the stimulus and response, a more healthy, appropriate action. So you can either challenge your cognitive distortions, or you can accept them and just be mindful that they're there. When do you do which? When do you challenge and when do you just let go and accept? Well, I like to think of cognitive distortions and automatic thoughts as like, taking on the form of leaves on a stream. Just think of leaves in the fall floating on a stream, and they're just flowing by you. These are like thoughts. They're coming and going. You have all these different thoughts, like, oh, I got to pay the bills. Oh, this guy said something I didn't like at the store. And we have all these thoughts all day, thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts. But sometimes the negative thoughts are so powerful that they kind of get stuck. And then more thoughts start piling in. And then they get in this little whirlpool in the stream, and they don't go anywhere. Well, that's when it's important to take them out, so the rest of the flow of the water doesn't get blocked. So we take them out by looking at them and challenging them and saying, well, what evidence do I have that this belief, this cognitive distortion, is even true? What evidence do I have? Is this an opinion that I have that's based off of a core belief, or is this the reality? Most of the time, your perception is the reality. So we have to break that up. We have to say, well, in reality, that might not be true. That person might have been having a bad day and they looked at me that way, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me that caused that, So we have to challenge these beliefs, and then we replace them with a healthy thought. That's like putting a flower back into the stream and letting that flow, something that's more beautiful and more intentional. So what do I choose to believe? What do I choose to think instead? And try to hold that in your thought for a long period of time. The longer you hold thoughts, the more powerful they are. And that makes sense, right? So the longer that you hold a negative thought, the more you dwell on it, the more you go in circles, the worse you feel. Well, it has the opposite effect for positive thoughts. The longer you hold the positive thoughts, the better you feel, the better that you're able to reprogram these thoughts that come in. So what are cognitive distortions? Well, there's several different types, and the better you get at recognizing what a cognitive distortion is, the more power you have to pluck these out of that stream of thoughts when they become blocked. So a cognitive distortion is like polarized thinking, black and white, all or nothing. Then you have other ones that are overgeneralization, like everyone's out to get me. Okay, that's another one. You can have a negative thinker that you're just cynical about everything, that, I'm going to my work and it's going to be a bad day. It's going to be rough. There's not going to be anybody that wants to talk to me. So there are several different types of cognitive distortions. You can look them up on a Google search, and you can see all the different types there are. There's blamers, negative thinkers, polarized thinking, catastrophizers, if I'm saying that right, minimizers, just all these things that they're not healthy. They don't create life. They don't create any color or value to our life. They actually take us away from being in the present. They keep us in the future, locked in or locked into the past. And so we have to challenge these things and get control of them. But we also have to accept, here's that other part, that there's part of us that will always be like that, and that will always think that we're not good enough. We have to make peace with that. And we make peace with that part by not letting our behaviors be reflected on those thoughts. Hope this helps. All right, take care.